From the Wayne County Courthouse in Goldsboro, North Carolina, Wayne Goldsboro Television brings you the meeting of the Wayne County Board of Commissioners. The meeting begins shortly with an agenda briefing, then the regular meeting will begin soon after. Please stand by for the Wayne County Board of Commissioners meeting.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning. Good morning.
And it's obvious I didn't get the message because I'm all the way out of tie today. Joe informed me that summer is over. I'll do better.
That's all right, I'll take mine off.
Mr. Pate, you want your chairman does, so I think you do about like you want to.
Well, I normally do, except at home. Okay. Invocation this morning, I've got Pastor Tom Harper coming in to do that. And John, you'll have to pledge, approve of the minutes, and discussion of agenda. Anything different to go on the agenda?
Don't have anything to add to my knowledge. Do you, Carol?
Yes, sir.
And public comments, you got appointments, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Let's see, we got David Harris and Chip here for our community development block grant. We'll do that public hearing at 9:30. And I guess after that, we'll have a motion, is that correct?
Right. There is a change on that. They've made a couple of adjustments, so it might be good maybe if we went over that now.
Okay.
So that you guys are ready.
Okay, fine.
You want to go over that?
We got a boatload of money coming, huh?
We hope. Good morning.
Good morning.
The two changes that were made based on the state's review of the proposal and kind of the readjusting their priorities, it included initially some money for small business loans. Even though the $10 billion program statewide is going to be managed by Commerce, in fact, they've already selected the organizations that have to manage it. We were told initially to put some funds in, and just so that we're giving an indication there's a need. But when they says, look, do not put it within your budget, so we simply took that and put it back up into housing. And the second change was, initially they said there was going to be planning funds, so we budgeted planning funds, and they says, no, there's not going to be any planning funds. So we simply took the planning funds and put them back up in the line items for which they were going to be used. For example, the storm drainage work was going to require not only environmentals, but some engineering design, evaluations, preliminary stuff as to what your most effective use is. And so we just shifted from planning, put it back into the construction line item that it was attributed to. The total budget remained the same. Goldsboro's budget remained the same. Mount Island's budget remained the same, and the county's budget remained the same. It's just a matter, we moved from the bottom, shifted them into actual work items.
And this motion we'll make today, that gives us so we can do the application to do that.
Yes, what you'll be authorizing is to submit the application. What we sent in before was a preliminary.
Yeah. Is there a timeline, I'm sorry, is there a timeline on that you think that we may get it turned around and dollars flowing?
We have to submit by September 15th, next Friday.
But we don't know how long it'll take them. They're supposed to be expediting everything. They're kind of, it appears like they're doing it in two stages. One is these 4 hardest hit, and the second is the 46 others. So we're hoping that will hold true on the review, and we'll get ours in and out.
I have questions.
Sure.
Do you think Hurricane Harvey will have any effect on getting this money?
Not on this, because this is HUD money.
Oh,
I do
okay.
think Harvey is going to impact us. The state of North Carolina needs about $200 million more of FEMA money for the buyouts.
Mm-hmm.
And we're very concerned about that because, you know, you've seen what the estimations are on Harvey. And it may come down to, it ends up being that the state will have to come up with the $200 million for these buyouts because, I mean, the numbers we're seeing out of Harvey are unbelievable. I think he's talking about a $9 billion bill right now to start, but the estimates are it's like $180 billion. That's off the chart.
Can we possibly quickly go through and give just a little bit of an explanation of these line items? As an example, where you've got small rental repair program, 990, what would that include?
Yeah.
I mean, I tell you, it says small rental repair program, so that must be,
Small rental is defined as any apartment complex less than 10 units. It could be single family, it could be a duplex, tri, quad, et cetera. Anything less than 10 units is considered small rental repair. We anticipate most of this is going to be single family type rental units. We can spend up to $30,000 for repairs of rental units, and that's what the funds are for. 33 units, $30,000, $990,000.
and then when you went to the multifamily housing, I tell you, that's over 10.
That's correct.
And
And that's at $50,000 apiece. And that can be either repair or new construction. In fact, what Goldsboro is proposing is the development of a multifamily apartment complex by partnering with developer, private nonprofit, et cetera, in order to build a multifamily apartment complex, and those funds could be used for that.
and those are primarily within the municipalities.
Yeah, that one is 100%.
That one is, that one is Goldsboro's, because they're the ones that's looking at a multifamily apartment construction.
Well, what about a small rental? I mean, is that for Goldsboro also?
That's for both Goldsboro and the county.
And those dollars are for the tenants relocation, or is it for
No,
the structure
in fact, the
itself?
tenants will have been gone. It is to take the properties that homeowner either didn't have flood insurance, the investor owner didn't have flood insurance, and to make repairs so the tenants could move back in.
The insurance companies have a game where they have a 3% win something. And if repairs don't meet a certain dollar, they won't do anything. The insurance companies have a deductible, and then they have an additional deductible. Second deductible has some kind of a trick in there that the adjustment will be based upon the total value of the house, and if it doesn't meet a certain category, you don't get anything for the damage. So if the insurance company does not contribute anything, does the landowner qualify for any of this?
Yes, it's not triggered by insurance. I was just saying, use that as an example. You could have no insurance and make repairs. You could have a limited amount of insurance and not enough to really make it occupiable. And so this comes in and sort of fills the gap.
Okay.
If somebody has already spent the money repairing, would they be entitled
For reimbursement.
for the reimbursement?
For the ones that have spent,
For what I'm talking about, the single rental.
no. There'd be no, if they have made some repairs, they can still qualify for additional repairs, because the state has a rehab standards that have to be met, green building energy standards that have to be met, and lead-based paint standards that have to be met. So even if the owner has made some repairs, if there's still deficiencies in those categories, then you can come in and provide additional assistance. I thought you'd ask if there's some people have made some repairs. There's actually a small category, housing repair reimbursement for homeowners only, that could be reimbursed some of those funds. Obviously, it's not going to include any insurance money. It's not going to include any FEMA, individual family grant money. The jury's still out as to whether it will include, if somebody borrowed money, would they be able to get reimbursed? That's always been discussion, and they haven't decided that yet. But there is a small category for some reimbursement, and again, all of these are low, moderate income anyway. So these are people that have very limited resources.
So let me ask this question. If a homeowner has some question as to whether you qualify or not, you suggest that they fill some paperwork out and send it in?
Well, it's gonna be real simple about whether they qualify. It's gonna be based on income. They send their income information in first. It doesn't matter what condition their house is in.
Even income on the home, on the landlord, or on
Income of the occupant.
income of the occupant?
Yeah, in the case of rental property, it gets to, there will be rents that have to be established that are considered affordable within Goldsboro, Wayne County, in order for them to receive assistance. And for the investor-owner properties, that may be a combination loan as well as some grant funds. But for the homeowners, it is income-based. It's low, moderate income all the way. And in fact, the investor-owner has to commit to renting that unit to a low-income tenant, which we would then come in and verify after the fact. The assistance gonna be just like our CDBG. Whatever money you get, there's gonna be a note and deed of trust to ensure that somebody doesn't turn around 30 days later and sell it and pocket the money. It'll vary based on whether it's a replacement house, 10 years, and for rehab, typically 5 to 8 year period, depending on the amount of the assistance. Would be, there'd be a lien on the property for that amount to make sure people don't profit from the expenditures.
Just one more final question. I think I asked this question before, but do you have a brochure that explains this? I mean, you're telling us, but you know, our words are almost like a moment. It's gone. And I was curious, the different categories that you talk about, is it in writing someplace?
Within the state's action plan, there's I created one-page sheets that simply state, well, rehab, homeowner, reconstruction, et cetera, with simply pieces of information that they provided to HUD, none of which are detailed enough at this point where you could actually provide all the information necessary to the homeowner.
And I think where we're at is that we've got to submit this as our application. And then when they approve that, we'll know what monies we've got for what category. And what we're also asking you to do today is authorize us to go out and hire a CDBG consultant, basically to manage this program. And so as we get into that, then we'll be able to do, I think, some of what you're talking about getting some PR out there about what's available, where do you go, and that sort of thing. But we don't have any of that yet.
I appreciate that, Jordan, because some of the public that I come in contact, they ask me questions.
Exactly.
And there's no real answer.
Yeah.
And then
And we don't have them yet.
thank you, because I was talking with someone, a 35, 40-minute conversation on the phone, which left me more confused than I started out. But he was, yeah, he was watching the last
Right.
time that our friend was here, and you know, he was almost at the same point I was. What does all this mean? You know,
Right.
who qualifies for what? Is there some place we can access the information to read? Like you, if you're in this category, does this count? If you're in here, can this work? 'Cause that's what we.
Once we have an approved application, and they've said, this is the money you're gonna get, this is our budget for it,
Okay.
we'll be hiring the community development block grant administrator. We've got to go through that process. You do have to go through a selection process because HUD requires that. And then once we have that person on board, then we can finally start getting into the actual administration.
Thanks, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I want to follow up on Mr. Parker's question. Do I understand that if a property owner, let's say a property owner goes ahead and makes repairs due to the situation that he's living in, if he makes 100% total repairs, then are you saying that none of that or part of that may be reimbursable or none?
Part of it can be reimbursable.
So because of the standards, a person would be beneficial to not do any major repairs and go ahead and file and see if they can get approved because of paint standards and so forth and so on. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not going to discourage anybody from making repairs on their house.
Well, I understand.
Because
Thank you. Thank you.
it's two steps. It's one, the structure itself, conditions and repairs.
Right.
But primarily, it's their income, it's their household income.
Yeah.
It's
And
also
and
very
until you
limited
get the
amount of
household
money.
income verified, there's not any category that they fall in. I mean,
Okay.
But, and the state has not written the guidelines on the reimbursement, and I can tell you that it's gonna be the messiest part of anything that we do in this program, and always has been, whenever the state's made that available.
Okay.
It's a difficult thing to do,
That's about as
because not
clear.
everything's reimbursed.
Yeah, that's about as clear as mud.
Exactly.
That's why I said.
I only have one other
All I can
question.
say is, in this program in the buyout,
Yeah.
save receipts, everything. I mean, every,
I only have one other question. Down here it says flood insurance premiums of $298,000. Why would we be paying flood insurance? Evidently, I'm not quite understanding that.
the HUD says, when you receive HUD assistance for either rehabilitation or if it's beyond repair, you can replace the house on site, okay? If it's in a 100-year floodplain, then you have to provide insurance for them. And in the past, it's always been simply whatever their annual premium was, you pay that at closing, when we do the note deed of trust closing, it gets paid as a part of that process. This year, this cycle, they're being, I guess, a little bit more lenient and saying we'll allow up to 2 years' worth of premiums at $2,000 per household. So that's for all of the owner-occupied structures.
And that would be if you acquire new property for them, when you go to closing, at that point you would pay up
Okay,
to.
that is, if you're repairing their house. We're still gonna have a closing for the note and deed of trust
Okay.
to ensure that the funds there's a lien on the property for the amount of the expenditures.
It is as crazy as it sounds. You're gonna keep them in the 100-year flood and pay flood insurance instead of coming up with the money and buying them out.
Okay,
Yeah, we're giving them incentive to stay in the floodplain.
Which is idiot.
Sure it
Which
is.
stupid.
And the
Okay.
deed of trust says they've got to keep that, and nobody ever looks to see if they do. So you set one time.
and I think they have to keep it, what, 10 years?
As long as the deed of trust, as long as the notes.
The 10 years if the house has been being replaced, and it's 5 to 8 depending on the amount of the repair system. If $10,000 worth of repairs would be 5 years, that's always a minimum, and then it just goes up to typically a maximum of 8 years on rehab.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, a lot of questions.
There's gonna be a lot more.
We'll ask that when we get into the regular session. Guys. Thanks for now.
One final thing I wanted to provide, there was a question at the last meeting about now, where does all this fit in? And you were asking about where in the world's that $30 million coming from housing? I put together a summary of all of the state's appropriations, not only in the 2016 Recovery Act and 2017 Recovery Act, but other money that's going into all the different departments. And this is basically what all of those funds are being spent for. The first 2 pages are the broad summaries of the 2 major bills, the $200 million for Recovery Act 16, and then, of course, the $100 million for 2017. The next 2 pages are helpful in that emergency management's getting $20 million that wasn't designated as part of the budget process, and they're in the process of designating those funds. And you'll be able to see where that money is now going. They have picked certain counties to spend $4 million worth of hurricane recovery. They picked 3 counties to do only the HMGP acquisition and elevation programs, and they're providing more money to the volunteers to make repairs. The last page is a summary that the governor's office provided of last year's, well, the current year's budget, starting with the $100 million Recovery Act and then going down to all of the different funds that were set aside in the different departments' budgets that would relate to hurricane recovery. And so this represents the most current record of all of those appropriations from the state. We'll keep track of those. There'll be changes as we go, as you might can imagine. And hopefully there'll be additional money, as the manager indicated, to get that other 2,000 households that still are requesting acquisition and elevation. But wanted to make sure y'all had that information, just as a reference.
I guess we won't have the answer of what's split up for Wayne County until we apply. Anything else?
That's it. Right now, we have is 25 out of all these 4 pages.
All right. Looking forward to the public hearing. So where are we? Spillman.
Yeah, what we want to do there is we've had some issues on that, and I want to go over those with you. Let me get my memo. Let's see. Basically, when we were developing the specs for the 911 Sheriff and Detention Center software, one of the features that we wanted was a seamless failover capability to a backup system in the event of a power outage or server problem. This is critical because we cannot afford to have the 911 center go down. In their proposal, Spillman Software has the capability to provide for this, but did not include the bridging software and additional hardware necessary to do so. The solution is to purchase the additional software and hardware to give us this failover capability with a disaster backup recovery component included. And then I go into details on that. What I would prefer to do, if y'all don't mind, is let's wait, because I'm going to have Ryan here at 9 to go in more detail with you on this.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, and the consent agenda,
Excuse me, could I just ask one
Sure,
question?
sure, go ahead.
Well, I read through that, and I couldn't quite understand why we would be doing that if we in fact are going to be building a new 911 center and have a complete backup system. I'm not quite understanding.
Well, that's what we need, but we need it to where you can switch over instantaneously, and that's what we don't have.
So this software would allow it switching?
Software and hardware. We also didn't have the appropriate hardware to
We
do
really
it.
should have gotten this up running.
Then it kind of makes sense, yeah.
Yeah,
I see
so
what you said.
what we've had.
So you got a backup system, but you got no way to switch over?
Right, automatically. And what you've got to have is something that goes on like that. And so Ryan has looked at everything. He's looked at the software, he's looked at the hardware, and we've gotten this proposal down considerably from where we first started, but it feels like this is essential. to
And it
have.
actually will be paid from 911 funds, is that correct?
We're going to try. I'm not sure it qualifies, but we're going to try as much as we can. If we can't, the 80,000 I have is actually coming in from, we want to increase the amount of revenue you're going to get from the jail because our renting out the rooms, renting out the jail cells is going much better than we planned. So that's where the money's coming.
Thank you.
Okay. These exclusions, they were all in order, weren't they, under consent agenda? Veteran, disabled, and prisoners.
Yes, yes, everything's fine there.
Ms. Allison,
Okay.
she's got a bunch of them, too.
I do have several budget amendments. The first one is for the library. This is to reappropriate some funds, $4,232 for some new furniture. They have some damaged furniture, and they asked that some of the funds from last year that were not spent be reappropriated for this purpose. For the health department, they are reallocating $18,000 from their part-time line item to, from their full-time line item to part-time line item. This is a community health assistant, and they've they are requesting that this program assistant be changed to a part-time employee. Services on Aging, this is actually for the next 3 of your budget amendments, number 27, the next 5. 27, then 29 through 32. They have several grants that had some unexpended monies at June 30, and we're requesting to reappropriate those and bring them forward. There's $1,200 for a grant that was given for the fitness equipment, $626 for client transportation, $1,076.53 in unexpended SHIP funds, and $414 for medical transportation, and then $3,378 for additional SHIP funds received. Number 33, for the health department, this budget amendment is needed to decrease the WIC breastfeeding peer counselor program by $339. This was just slightly under what they had anticipated to receive when we budgeted for it originally. Number 36, for the Development Alliance, this is to reappropriate funds you had voted on in 16-17, $1,208,000 for the Shell Building in Park East, and then $50,000 for the deposit money on the Bryan property, and that's originally what was voted on. So we're requesting to reappropriate those funds and bring them forward. You will see a budget amendment, I think it's 2 after this, for an additional $50,000 on the Bryan property. They had requested some additional earnest money, and that is, you'll see that one in a couple of budget amendments.
And just a quick question on that. That basically, the 1.2 includes that money's proceeds from the sale of the old Shell building?
Yes, I believe it does, but I'll double check on that.
As well as the land. So it's actually dollars that we had accumulated.
Right, and the budget amendment had been done last year, but we're reappropriating them since we had not spent it yet. For detention centers, $7,210. These are carry forward funds to pay for some uniforms that were voted on in June of last year. They ordered the uniforms, but it did not come in until after year end, so we're having to reappropriate those funds to cover that invoice. And then this is the other budget amendment I was referring to for Development Alliance. This is the additional $50,000 that the sellers requested for earnest money deposit on the property, Bryan property. For EMS, $1,000. These are to appropriate funds for escrow agent and earnest money deposit on an EMS station for the land. For the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, $187.38. This was just a small amount of money that had been unspent, and they are having to return, that particular program is having to return those monies to the state. For the health department, $11,260. They're requesting to carry forward unexpended monies to cover a contract for their software system that's in existence. This was actually supposed to be on a purchase order, and it was inadvertently canceled, so they're just bringing that forward. For the health department, they're requesting a net decrease of $5,000 in the Smart Start Health Service Team contract. And this is just to reflect what actually was awarded to them. They did not receive that until after the budget came in. For the health department, $3,810. They have received some additional funds for the Healthy Communities programs, and they will use these funds to pay for staff and community partners for training. This next one is for purchase orders, and this is an accounting system entry, and it does require a budget amendment because of the way our system handles purchase orders. These are all the purchase orders that were encumbered at June 30, and they need to be carried forward. There's a breakdown behind the budget amendment that kind of gives you some detail by fund of what these purchase orders are made up of. But these were all from 2016, 2017. And all the funds have not been spent yet, so we're requesting they be carried forward. Any questions on that one? That one's kind of an odd one. Okay. For Gateway, you all voted on the agreements in the last meeting for the road funds, and this is just the budget amendment to anticipate and appropriate those funds. For social services, requesting to decrease the Progress Energy Neighborhood Funds Program by $6208.49. They're just adjusting to their funding authorization that they have received to date. For cooperative extension, they are increasing the NC State University payments line item by $4,526. This is because of an increased rate in health insurance and retirement on those employees that we share with North Carolina State University. We received notification that those rates had increased, and we provide a certain percentage of that match, and so our match is going up accordingly on those employees.
Was that increase on the state insurance plan?
It is.
Yeah, and what your memorandum of understanding with NC State University is that you pay a set percentage on each one of their positions. So if any of that goes up, then we have to pay our proportionate share.
There's a big increase.
Well, that state plan, as y'all know, is struggling.
I know, I use it.
For the hospitalization fund, this is a reallocation. You'll see we're decreasing the claims line item and increasing a line item for wellness. This is to support the contract that was signed with UNC Healthcare to fund our wellness program. And we are not adding money to that, we're just taking it out of our claims line item, as we are hoping our claims will be lower this year. For finance, $1,363. We had the invoice for Eastern Carolina Council came in. They had a billing error, and we actually owed more than what they originally told us, so we are appropriating additional funds. As you can see, we're actually, instead of using fund balance appropriated, we're increasing the revenues we're expecting to receive from the misdemeanor jail on that, the daily bed rates that we're getting in, about $1,363. For the hospitalization fund, we had an administrative cost increase in our contract for this year. It was a per employee per month increase, and so we are reallocating funds from our claims line item to cover that increase.
Now, this one, I really have a problem with. We're talking about Blue Cross Blue Shield increased their charge to administer our program by almost $100,000.
This is and it is per employee per month, so this represents the annual total for us. Mark Browder is aware, because as soon as we saw it, we reached out to Mark III to find out, were they aware that there was an increase? And they are aware. They shop around every year when they do our renewal, that this was still the best option for us.
So Mark III did shop it out?
Yeah, he shops it every year.
And you just ain't nowhere to shop.
That's right. That's
There's nowhere to shop.
It would be interesting to see what United Healthcare and Cigna and others, what they provided to him, just for,
I mean, $100,000, my goodness.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
This is for the contingency line item, $27,816. As you recall, we budgeted in the original budget in contingency to cover our part-time bonuses once those were paid out. This is only for part-time employees. That came in at $27,816. So we're requesting to reallocate from contingency to the various departmental line items to cover those part-time bonuses. And I believe there's a breakdown behind that budget amendment if you wanted to see by department what that was. For FEMA, our FEMA Hurricane Matthew line item, we applied for monies on behalf of 3 of the volunteer fire departments that are requesting FEMA funds, and we are budgeting, we know what those amounts are, and are budgeting to anticipate and appropriate to pay those out.
that's a question. Were these the only 3 departments that requested it?
Yes, that's my understanding. It was Pikeville, Arrington, and Grantham.
Okay.
For the 911 fund, this is related to the Spillman project, but it's related to the 911 portion that we're hoping that the State Board 911 funds will pay. So those funds were unexpended at June 30, and we are reappropriating those to bring them forward and pay those out in the current year. For 4-H, 21st Century Program, there was I think in the original grant estimates, there was an error, so they are asking to correct that grant budget and decrease it by $21,987. And they got the various line items that were affected by that as well. Any questions?
Stable. I love it. I still can't get over $100,000 on Blue Cross Blue Shield.
All right, moving on to 5, we've got another position classification pay plan.
Yeah, this is just to clean up about 4 of them. The building code supervisor, what we found is when we went to pay the merits on these, if we did not move these, none of these would get a merit increase because they would be topped out. So we felt like we should increase the ranges there. So in building code supervisor, so that doesn't automatically mean they get an increase to that amount. It just means they have some room within the scale that they can then get the 2% merit increase.
Okay, tax refunds.
This is a little unusual. You haven't seen one of these in quite a while. This is, but apparently, this is legitimate. I got it from Janet Kearns, who's our collections division manager. I ran over it with Alan. He assures me it is legitimate, and so they are entitled to that refund. The reason, it's 2 amounts, $49.65.60 and $49.59.94 for 2 different years. So, but by law, y'all need to approve that. And this is Lowe's, I believe, isn't that right?
If you may remember, maybe a couple of years ago, there was a lot of publicity about the box stores saying that they were way overtaxed. Lowe's appealed to you, and you denied the appeal. They went up to the Property Tax Commission. They pulled way back from what they wanted, and I said, so this is money that we've got to get.
Okay.
All right.
No options, huh?
It's the best we could do, that's all.
We got an option of put a shop down.
All right, new business, we've got a agreement for a disposition of working dog.
Right. This is to turn over a retiring canine over to their handler. As y'all know, they won't take directions except from that handler. So the norm is just to give the animal to the handler.
Then we got a proclamation for the Senior Citizens Month, and that's it, Paul's here.
Right, and yeah, she'll be here.
She's already here.
Oh, hey, Paul. Okay. Well, no, I think
Well,
we'll
just
do
do
it
it.
now.
You
We're
gonna-
just going through it now.
Oh, okay.
Are you gonna read it? Okay, great. And let's see, Davin Madden's gonna be over, our health department.
Yeah,
Child
and
Prevention Team made a report.
he is not going to make a detailed report. He's just going to present it for your review.
He's gonna hit the highlights.
Maybe not even that. By law, we have to give it to you, and you have to acknowledge you've received it. So,
Okay. And let's see, then we have a motion to authorize RFQ for the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Program.
and that is, you will hold a public hearing up above, and you'll approve the sending in the application. And what this is to authorize your staff to go out for a request for qualifications so that we can hire someone to administer it.
Okay.
Because we are not an entitlement county. And let me explain that, because Goldsboro is an entitlement city. Goldsboro has full-time community development block grant staff, because they're assured that every year they're gonna get a certain amount of money. We are not. Ours comes in, we apply for grants. If we get them, then typically what we do is we hire Dave Harris's firm to administer that for us. HUD requirements require that we go through an RFQ process. So that's what we're asking you to authorize us to do. And I will tell you that we're trying to get clarification on this from the state. This may be an RFQ and it may be an RFP because their regulations aren't clear on it. So because this is for that CDBG DR process. And so we have a phone call into them and we'll be talking with them later this week. I think it's tomorrow. And we're going to nail that down before we send this out. The basic difference is this. With a request for qualifications, you ask somebody for the qualifications just like we do with engineers or architects. You select on qualifications and then you negotiate the fee. A request for proposals is you also ask them to send in their qualifications, but you ask them for a specific proposal. In other words, you have the fee there and you can, so it's not strictly the lowest fee, but it's fee and qualifications. But we prefer the latter, but we don't know what their regulations are yet. So we're trying to get clarification from them before we bother to send this out so that we send it out correctly. That's what all that's about.
All right.
Did I say that right, Joe?
So should our motion include to authorize either a RFQ or an RFP?
That probably would be better, come to think of it.
Okay, 5, motion to approve the Maxwell Center immersion video room proposal.
Y'all have discussed this previously. We took this through our agricultural center committee, and they recommended that you go with the one shown on the map here. This is, as you see, it's almost a complete circle, probably about 280 degrees. Immersion room, it'll be these high-def panels, TV panels. If you can think about things like that one, turn on its side and double the height. So it would be around that room. And this would allow us basically to show anything we want to show dealing with farming, and it would give the feel for if we were to go, for instance, and show someone harvesting corn and we put the camera up in the cab. It'll give the feel like you are driving the tractor and you're harvesting it. So we think we're going to be able to do a lot of things to educate the public on agriculture with this, and the committee was very excited about it. And Bill, I know you were there, you might want to.
Well, I was going to say there's also some money-making opportunities here too.
Yes.
Whether you have, people who may have a wedding, they can show pictures up there. Of course, they're going to have to rent it. And if you have a tool show, the companies could run their videos and that kind of thing. So there's opportunity to try to recover some of these dollars. And the group was unanimous in their decision that they just felt like the educational piece was so important that that's the reason they voted for the full-scale.
Right. And for what it's worth, I'm in agreement with them. I think this is the far better option. I think with what we've put in there, it'll really.
And we got some conservative farmers who voted unanimously, and
yeah.
I felt pretty good about that.
Yeah. And again, in the package, you have the breakdown of it. It's roughly about $131,000.
And then we'll have a video by the Public Affairs Department. Hopefully it'll work.
We can only hope.
County manager's comments and board of commissioners' comments, and I know we're gonna need a closed session. I don't know if we've got time to do one now, do we?
We can do it.
No.
I think we can take care of one of them.
Okay, we're gonna have to move quickly then. What's the reason we're going to closed session?
One of them is to discuss qualification performance of a public employee. One is to consult with me to preserve the attorney-client privilege. And next, the matters relating to location of businesses in Wayne County.
Is there a motion to go in closed session?
So moved.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand.